Emerging from the rain-drenched backstreets of Aberdeen, Washington, Nirvana broke the mold of 1980s rock with a raw, unfiltered sound that spoke directly to a disaffected generation. They weren't just a band, they were a revolution.
It was 9 o'clock in the morning and I was hungover, so I don't know what I said. I don't even remember.
Well, the way it went that I read it was Nirvana means freedom from pain and
suffering in the external world. That's just the Webster's dictionary. I mean, that's just right out of the Webster's dictionary.
And you said, as far as you could tell, that's what punk means to you. So it was the perfect name. That's not why you chose the name then.
Now I remember. Yeah, that's why. Sure.
A force of nature that would forever alter the course of music history. This is the story of Nirvana, from their humble beginnings and meteoric rise to the devastating loss of their charismatic frontman, Kurt Cobain, and the unforgettable feud with Guns N' Roses that encapsulated an era of cultural collision. In 1987, Nirvana was born out of the desire to create music that was honest and unpretentious, a stark contrast to the overproduced glam metal dominating the airwaves. Founders Chris Novoselic and drummer Chad Channing set the stage, but it was the arrival of frontman Kurt Cobain that transformed the band into a cultural phenomenon. Cobain's introspective lyrics, raw vocal delivery, and magnetic stage presence quickly established him as the voice of a generation. Their debut album, Bleach, 1989, recorded on a shoestring budget, captured this gritty essence and hinted at the seismic shift to come. By 1991, with the release of Nevermind, Nirvana transcended underground acclaim to capture the attention of millions around the globe. The album's breakout hit, Smells Like Teen Spirit, became an anthem for youth, signaling the birth of the grunge movement, a musical and cultural uprising that rejected the extravagance and superficiality of the 1980s. Nirvana's music was a breath of fresh air, unfiltered, raw, and utterly honest.
I'm so retarded. I can't take the sound that
Their sound was in direct form of punk's rebellious spirit, the distorted power of heavy metal, and an emotional vulnerability that resonated deeply with listeners. Cobain's songwriting tapped into the collective consciousness, articulating the pain, alienation, and disillusionment of a generation that felt betrayed. As Cobain once confessed, "I'd rather be hated for who I am than loved for who I'm not." The band's rise was meteoric. As the grunge movement exploded, Nirvana's influence grew. Nirvana wasn't merely making songs, they were crafting a new language for a world in flux. Kurt Cobain, the heart and soul of Nirvana. At the center of this revolution was Kurt Cobain, a man whose talent and tortured soul became the defining voice of an era. Cobain was more than just a singer. He was an enigma, a poet who bared his soul through lyrics that were both brutally honest and hauntingly beautiful. His music was a mirror, reflecting the inner turmoil of a generation that grappled with the emptiness of modern society. As he once remarked, "I'm so happy because today I found my friends, they're in my head." Cobain's presence on stage was magnetic. He embodied the very essence of grunge. He spoke openly about his struggles with depression, drug addiction, and the pressures of fame, making him a relatable figure to millions. However, the meteoric rise of Nirvana came at a tremendous personal cost. Behind the public persona of Cobain's raw talent lay a man tormented by inner demons and the crushing weight of expectation. His struggle with heroin in the early 90s further strained his relationships with bandmates and disrupted touring and recording schedules. In the midst of this turmoil, Cobain's anguish was compounded by the contradictions of his newfound celebrity status. The very authenticity that had endeared him to fans was now exploited by an industry that demanded commercial success and constant exposure.
I don't care what anyone thinks about my past drug use. I can put the blame on that kind of influence, but it's a mixture of, rock and roll in general, the Keith Richards thing and Iggy Pop and all those other people that did drugs. I just thought it was just one of those things that you do, to relieve the pain. But, as I expected, before I started doing heroin, I realized that I knew at the beginning that it would become just as boring as marijuana does, like all drugs. After a few months, it's just as boring as, breathing air, So I just don't want to try. I've always lied about it because I didn't want to influence anybody, I didn't want anyone to even consider the thought of doing drugs because it's really stupid.
For many fans and observers, the signs were unmistakable. A brilliant artist pushed to the brink by the pressures of fame and the demons he could neither escape nor fully conquer. But we'll touch on that a little later. Stay tuned. First, the infamous feud, Nirvana versus Guns N' Roses. Amidst the whirlwind of Nirvana's rise and the personal turmoil of its frontman, another dramatic chapter unfolded, a feud that would become legendary in rock history. A collision of two vastly different worlds. Guns N' Roses, led by the volatile Axl Rose, epitomized the excess and bravado of the 1980s rock scene. Their flamboyant style, aggressive lyrics, and hard partying image were a stark contrast to Nirvana's raw, introspective format.
We were all pretty much troublesome kids. And now, a lot of the things that you used to do as a kid for fun that you might have got away with, you're not going to get away with now. And also, they might be stupid things. So, I don't know, it just escalates into a point where, it's like throwing a TV out of a window is boring. Let's see if we can drive a car off the roof,
Axl Rose, in his early days, had expressed admiration for Nirvana's groundbreaking work. He even extended an invitation for Nirvana to tour with Guns N' Roses and Metallica, a gesture that might have bridged the gap between the two camps. However, the seeds of discord were sown when Kurt Cobain made it clear that Nirvana was not interested in aligning with the excesses of Guns N' Roses. The tension between the two bands reached its boiling point at the 1992 MTV Video Music Awards. Backstage, a series of incendiary exchanges set the stage for chaos. In one infamous incident, Courtney Love, Cobain's wife, jokingly invited Axl Rose to be the godfather of their newborn daughter, Frances Bean Cobain. What began as a lighthearted remark quickly escalated.
By the trailers.
Axl walked by and Courtney and I just jokingly said, "Axl, will you be the godfather of our child?" We're just joking around, and he turned around and started pointing his finger, and it's really aggressive and mean, like threatening to beat me up and stuff. And I couldn't help but laugh because I haven't been in that kind of a situation since I was in 6th grade.
Shortly after, at a concert in Orlando, Axl publicly hurled insults at Cobain and Love, using derogatory terms that underscored the deep cultural divide between grunge and glam.
So right now, alternative, only thing that means to me is someone like Kurt Cobain in Nirvana, who basically is a junkie wife. And if the baby's born deformed, I think they both ought to go to prison. That's my feeling. And he's too good and too cool to bring his rock and roll to you. Because the majority of you, he doesn't like or want to play to or even have you like his music. It seems to be a general feeling among a lot of alternative bands that they don't want the majority of people even liking them. They like it on the outside.
The atmosphere reached a fever pitch during Nirvana's performance when drummer Dave Grohl taunted Axl by repeatedly shouting, "Where's Axl?" into the microphone.
Hi Axel! Hi Axel! Where's Axel? Hi Axel! Hi Axel! Hi Axel!
Though the feud eventually subsided, its memory remains a vivid reminder of the collision between two eras of rock, a battle not just of music, but of values and visions. A huge reason the feud ended was a tragic situation that appeared to change the dynamics of music as a whole: the loss of Kurt Cobain.
Kurt Cobain was found dead this morning at his Seattle estate. The lead singer of Nirvana was apparently at the house alone. This morning, an electrician sent to work on a security system looked in the window of the garage apartment and saw a body on the floor.
He had a shotgun laying across, pointing to his neck.
Police officers had to break into the house to get to the body.
In March 1994, the unthinkable happened. Cobain overdosed in Rome, an incident many believe was a suicide attempt. A month later, he checked himself out of rehab and disappeared. He was found dead at his Seattle home on April 8th, 1994, though it is believed he died on April 5th. The music world was shattered. His death marked the tragic end of a visionary whose life had burned too brightly and too briefly. Cobain's passing not only left a void in Nirvana, but also symbolized the end of an era. In an instant, the raw, unfiltered voice of a generation was silenced, leaving behind a legacy steeped in both brilliance and heartbreak. The immediate aftermath was one of shock, disbelief, and profound grief.
I mean, were you on
Things
good terms?
got weird towards the end.
So did that make you feel even weirder about his death? Were you sort of estranged?
Yeah, I mean, everybody sort of was. I think at that point it had sort of split off, and it just got really weird. It was,
I didn't know that.
Yeah, well, I mean, I don't know if anybody really does, but it had gotten to the point where
He wasn't talking to you?
well, they were just, I don't do drugs.
Right.
I haven't done drugs since I was a kid.
Right.
20 years old, I think, is when I stopped. And so, there were drugs around, and there was like the people who did the drugs, and then there were people that didn't do the drugs. And I didn't do the drugs. And so I was just out of that world, And if you're in it, you're in it. If you're not, you're out.
Fans, musicians, and critics alike mourned the loss of a man who'd so eloquently captured the spirit of rebellion and authenticity. In the wake of Cobain's death, Nirvana struggled to find its footing. The band, which had been so intrinsically tied to Cobain's identity and vision, was left directionless. While the surviving members attempted to honor his memory, the spark that had ignited their groundbreaking sound was extinguished, leaving behind a bittersweet legacy of what might have been. After Nirvana disbanded, the remaining members pursued other projects. Dave Grohl went on to form the Foo Fighters, achieving significant success, while Chris Novoselic engaged in various musical and political endeavors. Nirvana's journey, from the gritty underground beginnings to the dazzling heights of international fame, was a story of radical transformation, creative brilliance, and heart-wrenching loss. Kurt Cobain's death marked the end of an era, leaving an unfillable void in the band and in the hearts of millions of fans. The raw energy, passion, and authenticity that Nirvana brought to the music world continue to resonate, influencing generations of musicians and inspiring countless fans to seek truth in art.